Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending July 16th. We have a full moon this week, so that's something to look forward to, I guess. But you know what? We're going to go ahead and get right to it and figure out where all that is. And we're going to start, of course, as we always do, with Aries. Currently, Jupiter is the only planet that continues to influence Aries, and that square that Jupiter had with the sun will continue for the first couple of days of this week. But it is over after Tuesday, which is really good because then that means that sort of challenging energy just kind of wanes off a little bit. Focus is still on relationships and expansion of relationships, is what it's all about, especially with Jupiter's influence being all about expansion. So that challenge, that occurs with the square of Jupiter and the sun's focus is still very much on career, kind of does bring up challenges in terms of expansion of acquaintances or business relationships in some way. As this square lifts and after Tuesday it will be gone as the moon moves out of position to be in that squared position with Jupiter. One of the things that we wind up seeing is that things tend to smooth out a little bit. So in terms of growth of relationships, this may not mean so much about new relationships as it is a chance for the relationships that you've already established to move forward, if this makes sense. And that square that we had actually is a prime opportunity to be able to see which relationships have the ability to move forward and which relationships are maybe aren't going to move forward. So it sort of takes the rose colored glasses off a little bit and allows you to see a little bit clearer than maybe you were seeing before. This is kind of a pain, especially if it's one of those situations where it's a relationship that you've had for a long time and it's just not resonating with what you're trying to do currently right now. I think we've all been in that situation more than once in our lives. You have friends that you're friends with for a really long time, and all of a sudden you decide to make changes in your life for whatever reason, and those people are just not on board. They want things to stay the way they are, and they'll do whatever they possibly can to prevent your growth. And we wind up in a position of making some really hard choices in terms of, do we want to continue to pursue this relationship or not? So my advice in this situation, and I absolutely have been in that situation, is to do what's best for you, not necessarily what's best for the other person. Because usually what's best for the other person is them getting what they need and you sacrificing your needs in order to do that. And if that is the case, you definitely want to avoid that at all costs, because usually those relationships have a tendency to get in the way more than they're helpful. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving on to Taurus. Taurus still very much focused on finances this week, and that square between Uranus in your sign and Saturn is, of course, going to continue this week as well. Saturn also continues to be retrograde, whereas Uranus is direct in your sign. And of course, we have Mars in Taurus at this time also. Mars in Taurus is actually very interesting. Taurus is a fixed sign. Fixed signs are not necessarily known for their high energy level. In fact, of all the Tauruses that I've met, they're either, very low energy level or extreme high energy level. They're overachievers or underachievers. This is really difficult to kind of meet in the middle there, if that makes any sense. Mars is going to add this extra boost of energy into everything that you're doing while he's in your sign, which will be for the next few weeks for sure. And one of the things about that is it's actually awesome to have that sort of fire lit under your butt to get things done. I really enjoy it. However, it can create so much energy propelling you forward that it burns you out at the same time, and that's really what you want to be aware of. You also want to be aware with Mars is all about ambition. It's all about moving forward, and this is why his energy is so intense, because it's like this constant intense energy moving into the next thing that you're trying to do, and that's fine. But also Mars is all about aggression. And so when you're overachieving on that level, or your energy, you're just go, 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 go all the time, this tends to start to promote frustration. And when you start to promote frustration, you start to get yourself into other things, other challenges that can be frustrating as well. So we want to taper the frustration as much as possible, because success obviously isn't fueled by frustration. It's fueled by positive energy, and frustration is not necessarily positive energy. So what this means basically is that lots of time taking care of you, lots of time to yourself, lots of breaks, that'll help you keep up with that energy motion of Mars. Also, with focus on finances, Mars energy coming in really creates a haven, a beautiful place for you to really focus on some hardcore financial goals specifically, and to really put the energy into those financial goals as well. So when I say financial goals, of course, I'm talking about budgeting money, I'm talking about spending money, and of course, I'm talking about making money. So there could definitely be some possibilities there for you to come up with some side hustle ideas, I guess, in terms of generating more income. I mean, we live in this day and age where side hustles are just, there's so many options to choose from. I'm sure it's like that in the rest of the country, in the rest of the world. I mean, here in California, we have so many opportunities. And so I would think that most of them have spread out, of course, by now. They usually start here and then kind of branch out into the rest of the country, into the rest of the world. But for the most part, this is putting a lot of energy into making sure that you're focused on your focus is in the right place to be able to generate that income, to be able to create that budget, to be able to create these invest your money in the safest way possible. So that's what I have for you guys. And I'm going to move on to Gemini. Gemini has Venus for one more week this week. This is actually the last full week that Venus will be in your sign, probably be in your sign for the first day of next week, and then it moves on to Cancer. Focus is on long-term goals this week. And of course, with Venus's influence on long-term goals, we're talking about a lot of creative goals, or talking about creativity being part of those goals. Usually when you think of Gemini, you think of an intellectual sign. Pardon me. Usually when you're thinking of an intellectual sign, you're not necessarily thinking of creativity, but there's so many creative influences out there that you don't really think of as being creative. So first of all, when it comes to creative goals, we're looking at things like home improvement, like, not just for function, but for beauty. We're looking at setting up your yard rather than just taking care of your yard. We're looking at ways of beautifying things, not just creating things or fixing things, which is more of a logic brain. And of course, the beautify is more of the Venus brain, the emotional brain kind of a thing. Venus does form a trine with Saturn this week, all the way to the end of her stay. And of course, trines are definitely very helpful aspects with your with Saturn's focus on those you love, this sort of opens the door to this not just being a personal project, but maybe a family project, or a project with your spouse, or a project with a really good friend, something like that, that sort of helps it to be not just a you project, but a group project kind of a thing as well. That's always nice, to be able to have that opportunity. It is a little bit difficult when the two of you don't see eye to eye. So I guess the best thing to say about that would be to keep an open mind and to make sure that you choose somebody who also can keep an open mind as well. That would definitely be helpful in terms of making sure that you follow through with these plans and complete them, especially before you lose Venus's energy focus, or Venus's energy help, I guess. Because it's not that you won't have any creativity when she's gone, but this kind of amplifies the creativity a little bit for you guys. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Cancer. This is the last full week of the sun being in Cancer. And before I go any further, I just have to say happy birthday to my little Cancer, who's not really a little Cancer anymore. Actually, he's turned 20 years old. That's my baby. My baby is turning 20 years old. So no more teenagers for me forever. There's a part of me that's like, hell yes, let's have a party. And there's another part of me that's like, but I'm not willing to have any more kids to fix that. So we'll just move on. But I hope Daniel has a wonderful birthday. I'm pretty sure he's going to. I'm gonna spend it with him anyways. So yeah, this is the last full week of the sun in Cancer. It moves out of Cancer next week, about midweek or so, and then we are done with Cancer season and moving into Leo season. Also, Mercury moves into conjunction with the sun by the end of this week. So you have those two planets really working together in terms of your career, because we're still very much career focused this week. And so when you're focused on your career, the sun's house is where you shine. Mercury's house is where you tend to communicate. Communication about your career goals is really important. A lot of people make the mistake of doing a really good job very quietly and then saying, well, if I am meant to have that promotion, somebody will approach me for it. It doesn't really happen that way very often. You have to make it known that this is what you want. If you don't make it known, chances are you're going to be passed over for somebody that did make it known that they want this opportunity. So communication in that sense is really, really important, actually, to make sure you communicate what you want. The worst they're going to say is no, or they're going to pick somebody else anyways. But you actually get further asking or putting it out there, that you making it known that this is what you want, than you would if you didn't say anything anyways. You got to think about it in those terms. Also, both planets move into opposition. Well, actually, the sun continues his opposition with Pluto, and Mercury joins that opposition with Pluto. With Pluto's focus on the home at this time, and the sun and Mercury's focus on career, an opposition does kind of throw those two things out of balance. So it kind of feels like, unfortunately, you're sort of in both places, if that makes sense, for whatever reason. And there's a million, like I said, I think I said last week, there's a million reasons why this would happen. When you start to feel like you're being pulled back and forth, what you want to do is take hold of that, is take control over that as much as you possibly can. Whatever issues that are going on at home, if it's something that somebody else can take care of, delegate it so that somebody else can take care of it. If there's issues in terms of your work situation that you can't delegate, delegate what you can and focus on what you can't delegate, and do the same thing at home. Cancers, especially Cancer women, especially Cancer mothers. I have a Cancer rising sign, so I kind of count in this also. It can be very difficult to feel like you're being pulled between your career and your family and your responsibilities to other people. Cancers are nurturers to begin with. So this is just a really uncomfortable, really emotionally challenging situation that the more you can do, and sometimes delegating the problem to another person feels like failure, and that's not necessarily true. I looking back in hindsight, raising my own children, I can see where teaching them to be independent meant that, of course, they were going to leave me someday. But teaching them to be independent was very helpful on me, because once I taught them to do their laundry, I didn't have to do their laundry. Now I've got time to focus on my career because they're taking care of that part themselves, right? And so we tend to feel as mothers that we're sort of dropping the ball by teaching our children to be independent. But the truth is, it's actually better for them in the long run if they are independent, because let's face it, we're not going to be around to do this stuff for them forever. They need to learn, and they need to be able to be successful without us as well as with us. So if you look at it in that way, it makes it maybe a little bit easier to make that decision. So that's what I have for you guys. I hope that resonates. And we're moving on to Leo. Still no planets in Leo currently this week, but that is all going to change next week when the sun moves into Leo and moves into opposition with Saturn. So let's enjoy no planets in your sign this week. Focus continues to be on your support system. Oddly enough, there are people that are always there to support you, and there are people who are never there to support you. And then sometimes the people that are always there to support you disappear for whatever reason, and the people that are never there to support you step it up. It's life's weird mystery, if that makes any sense at all. The thing that you really want to pay attention to, and a lot of times people get hung up on this, most people get hung up on this, those that are always there to support you that all of a sudden can't for whatever reason, this creates this emotional chaos inside your head where you're trying to figure out what's happening energetically. Are you being punished? Are they lying to you? Are they just not? There's all kinds of things that you can come up with that is really an energetic waste of time for you. Things come up. It always happens. I think I mentioned in my video last week, my number one supporter is my husband. He's always there for me. And then sometimes he's not. And, for whatever reason, either he's working that day or something more important than me is coming up. And the truth of the matter is, if I spend too much time worried about that and being upset about it, I'm wasting a lot of energy uselessly when I don't need to. It is a surprise when those that don't normally support you all of a sudden want to come and support you. And for some people, your first thought is, why? What is it that you want from me? At least that's where I go to, and I know I'm not the only one. Sometimes it's just because they're there and because they have the time and because why not? And it is a little bit of surprise. It may throw you for a loop. The truth of the matter is, what you should be doing is enjoying it while you have it, because these people, it could be short-lived. So try and enjoy it as much as you can, preferably without question. But of course, if these people are challenging in your life, I wouldn't 100% trust them. Be appreciative, but don't jump all over them with accusations until there's a really good reason to. So that's what I have for you guys. And we're going to move on to Virgo. No planetary influence in Virgo this week, which is good because, to be honest with you, last week's stint with the moon was a little bit crazy anyway. So we could use a break, right? So that's good. Focus is still on the inner closet or our inner emotional selves. And so a lot of times when focus is on your inner emotional self, triggers have a tendency to come up. It's just something that it's just something that happens. This is an opportunity, of course, to really learn how to navigate those triggers so they're not taking over your life all the time. But it's also an opportunity to really pay attention to how much work you have done. How many of those difficulties have you taken out of that closet? Have you healed from and kind of eliminated? It is about cleaning out that closet in many ways. A lot of people make the mistake of, and I've seen this, like if I had a dime for every time I seen it, I'd have a lot of dimes. Okay. A lot of people tend to look at their past emotional traumas as trophies instead of scars. This happened to me for a reason, and I have to remember that it happened, and I have to keep it in my mind so that it doesn't happen again. And that's true to a certain extent, but it's not true to a certain extent also. Actually, that doesn't it's not helpful, because what you're doing is you're justifying holding on to something that's completely painful to you. um and you shouldn't hold on to it. You should get rid of it. That's what growth is all about. You don't hold on to abuse and say, I'm holding on to this abuse because it makes me a stronger person. No, healing from the abuse makes you a stronger person. Being able to love, even though you were denied love at one time, makes you a stronger person. So the more you start to shift your perception on this stuff in your closet, the easier it is to start to eliminate those things that are just no longer serving your best interests anymore, because that's also really what it's all about. So that's what I have for you guys. And we're moving on to Libra. Again, it is still all about you Libras this week. Well, it's all about you Libras this month. We'll just go ahead and put that out there. And no planetary influence this month, I'm sorry, this week at all, because of course we had the moon last week, and we can only have him once a month, right? Him, her, whatever she is, he is. Maybe we'll have the planet start identifying by their own sexual preferences pretty soon. In this world, you just never know. With focus on yourself, it's really important this week to pay attention to your own needs. And I think that's really important for most Libras, because a lot of times, most of the Libras that I know anyways, they do a lot of sacrificing themselves for other people's needs. So for instance, you've got a day off scheduled, you swear you're not going to do anything. I've heard my husband, who's a Libra, say this a million times. I am off today and I'm not doing anything, and there is nobody that's going to change my mind. And then somebody calls and says, hey, you want to make some money today? And then the next thing you know, he's dressed and suited and booted and out the door, right? Which is fine if that's what he chooses to do. But when you really need that time off, it's really important to put down those boundaries on those people and say, no, you know what? I need to today. I need to get things done. I need to rest. I need to take care of me today. Ask me tomorrow. And if the opportunity is gone by tomorrow, oh, well, there's always another opportunity to make money. There's always another opportunity to do anything. So it's really important to pay attention to just how much you're taking care of yourself, or how much you're sacrificing yourself for others. This is the reason why this is so important, is because the more you sacrifice yourself for others, the more you start to realize that they're not doing that for you. And so you keep sacrificing yourself, hoping that they'll get it, and they never do. They're never going to get it. You're never going to get what you want. You have to communicate what you want, or do it yourself. And if you insist, or if you expect other people to take care of you and they're not, then you need to be the one to take care of you. And that means boundaries on others while you do that. So that's what I have for you guys. And we're moving on to Scorpio. Scorpio is still focused on the past with no planetary influences this week, since we had the moon in our sign last week. There isn't any other planets currently going on in Scorpio right now. So that's actually kind of a good thing when you think about it. With focused on the past, a lot of times when individuals are focused on the past, there's a couple of different things that happen. Either they're harping on or stuck in a time that they believe is better. So a lot of times we will look at our childhoods as being just so easy and so wonderful, and why can't we go back to that? I mean, the thought of somebody else taking care of me instead of me having to do it is always nice. Other times we harp on situations that negative situations that happen and we get stuck there, or we look at we were younger and we had all this energy to do all this stuff, and now we're older and we don't have energy to do squat, kind of a thing. You get to choose how you're looking into these past situations. Are you looking at them as a learning experience, or are you looking at them as a punishment experience? If you're punishing yourself for not being as good as you were when you were younger, you're not getting anything done now that you're older. And just because you're older doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that it might take a little bit more time. The good thing about being older, though, is we have wisdom that we didn't have back then. You do want to take that into consideration, always. The other thing in terms of looking at the past is if things looked better back then and they feel crappy now, change it. Obviously you can't go back to childhood where you have parents that support you, and you don't have to be an adult anymore. We can't go back to that, unfortunately, unless you're lucky enough to find a millionaire who will support you. That's just not going to happen, and there just aren't enough millionaires to go around, you know what I mean? But if you're looking at, outside of somebody else taking care of you, what about childhood was so wonderful? If you can find a way to mimic that now, you change the energy that you're putting into now by bringing an element of that back in some way, shape, or form. And you're also allowing yourself to see different things that made you happy before that maybe you've kind of grown past and didn't realize that they were gone. Maybe there's certain things that you need to bring back, like Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, that was my favorite thing when I was a kid. We don't watch cartoons when we're adult, to be honest with you. Sometimes, many times there's a reason, but bringing back that element of waking up in the morning and streaming Bugs Bunny cartoons, it does bring that element of happiness. Like I'm traveling back into that space for just a minute, and just that little thing really helps to change your energy for the entire week. So just make sure this week when you're focused on the past, your focus is there for the right reasons. You're not harping on something that you can't get back anymore. You're actually trying to find ways of creating that kind of energy into your now life, preferably without all of our preconceived notions of life is shit. As we get older, that notion gets stronger. It kind of helps balance that out a little bit. So that's what I have for you guys. And we're going to move on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, still focus on the mind and how you think and ideas. Lots of ideas. I'm seeing lots of ideas coming up for you guys this week as well. And when you have lots and lots and lots of ideas, it's definitely a good idea to write some of these ideas down, especially because the Sagittarian brain is going to come up with this and this and this and this and this and this, and you might forget some of those ideas. If they're really good ideas, write them down, so that you can kind of sort of go back to that later on and see what you can do with some of those ideas, for sure. When you are in an idea mode, pardon me, when you're in an idea mode, especially when you've got a lot of things flooding in you at the time, what tends to happen is you want to get up and do it right this minute. And when you got multiple ideas going on, it sometimes can be difficult for you physically to keep up with how quickly your mind is processing all of this stuff. That's why I say to write these things down, because if you try and do it while you're getting the flood of ideas, you're going to be missing things. And if you write them down, it gives you an opportunity to actually approach this idea as something that you can turn from an idea into a goal and a goal into reality by taking the steps to do it. You're not going to be able to run through it really quick this time, unfortunately. In fact, I would have to say that 95% of the time when people try to do that, they fall short or they wind up with holes in their ideas, if that makes sense. So that's one thing. The other thing is that typical Sagittarian brain, you have one idea that has two offshoots that have two offshoots each, that have two offshoots each. And so that one idea all of a sudden goes in like 20 different directions. By writing the idea down, it sort of helps to curb that a little bit. It's not that that's not going to happen. It's your brain. That's how your brain works. Of course, that's how it's going to happen. But it does allow you the time to be able to process all those offshoots and still come back to what the original idea is. So as you're coming up with all of these ideas, be they for your personal life, your business, your family, what have you, as you're writing each of these ideas down, it becomes a goal as you're writing them down, and you're setting goals before you even realize you're setting goals. And that is the only way anything is ever going to get done. So that's what I have for you guys. Moving on to Capricorn, Pluto. Pluto is still in Capricorn and in opposition with the sun for the remainder of this week. Now, that opposition is going to end next week as the sun moves out of your opposing sign of Cancer and into Leo. And then we won't be dealing with this opposition anymore. But it is still a challenge this week, unfortunately. With focus on the home this week, it may be difficult when your responsibilities to your career become more, unfortunately, you're more focused on that than you are on any ideas that you have with the home right now. Now, again, this challenge is only prevalent up until this week, and then that challenge ends. So the good news about this is that you have time later on to focus on your home because things become a little less crazy at work next week. So that's one thing that's going on. The good news is that Pluto continues that sextile with Neptune, and that sextile with Neptune, which is all about your focus is really on your day-to-day schedule. Neptune kind of creates this sort of flow, being that it's a very flowy, energetically flowy sign because it's intuitive, number one, and because it's in Pisces, which of course is a water sign, which is all about the flow of energy and in some cases emotions. So I mean, obviously this kind of situation creates frustration, and that's really the frustration is really the downside to the problem. It's not the problem itself, it's always how you react to the problem. Now, Capricorns do have a tendency to be a little bit pessimistic. So I hear a lot of course this is going to happen. Of course I'm focused on this, and these people have to call me because they can't do their job without me, you know, kind of a thing. The truth of the matter is, though, is that, you know, this is a situation that may just be a really easy fix. So they bothered you for 5 minutes. It could be a situation that's going to take even longer. That's okay. You can schedule a time to deal with this. So not every situation is, I need this done now. And that's really what you're looking at in terms of whether or not this is a frustrating situation or not. It could be something that can be put off until tomorrow, leaving you time to focus on the responsibilities that you have at home. Or It can be something that's going to take a few minutes. And once you're done, you can go back to dealing with your responsibilities at home. It really is the frustration. It's the emotions that get in the way of the situation, I think, more than the situation itself. And because we're human beings, we tend to take a situation that was annoying that lasted 10 minutes and blow that up into an all day process. It seems ridiculous that we would do that, but it is absolutely true. We all have the tendency to do that. So it's all about being mindful of your emotional flow. How long is this going to be frustrating for you? Is it going to be frustrating for 10 minutes and then you let it go? Or is it going to be frustrating all day? If you're going to allow it to be frustrating all day, then it's going to take up a lot more time than you want it to, and therefore you're not going to have time to take care of your projects that you have at home. So that's what I have for you guys. And we're moving on to Aquarius. I still have that square between Saturn and Uranus this week. Still going to be a little bit of a challenge, specifically in terms of income. Money is a part of this challenge, as well as those that you love. And we also have a trine with Venus this week, which is a very helpful aspect. So we could use that little bit of help because that square between those other two planets is just kind of a pain in the butt. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's talk about this trine with Venus. As Venus moves out of Gemini, moves into a trine with Saturn. Saturn, of course, is still retrograde this week. When we're focus is on those that you love, and Venus's focus is very much on long-term goals. And this is actually a prime opportunity because of the fact that this square between Uranus and Saturn has been such a pain in the butt. It really just kind of sort of, especially with us being fixed signs, it tends to drag on and on and on forever. This trine with Venus is like a boost of positive energy that comes in a situation like that and says, oh, and you're just like, oh, thank you. I really needed that little boost of energy there because I've been really frustrated with these challenges for a while now. And with Saturn being in Aquarius, it's kind of a very strange energy. Saturn is all about tradition and doing things the same way we've always done them. And if it's not broke, why fix it, kind of a thing. And then all of a sudden you've got Aquarius, which is like, I don't play by the rules. I'm a rebel. I do the opposite of what I'm told. Tradition, to hell with tradition. We're going to blow this up and make changes, kind of a thing. They just don't go together very well. But when in terms of Saturn, Saturn does bring us down from the clouds a little bit, because let's face it, we're Aquarians. Our heads are up there in the clouds all the time. And every once in a while, we got to come down back to earth and back to the reality of what life really is. And when this trine happens with Venus, it creates this creative element, right? So it takes you out of this idea space. I have to do this, I have to do that, I definitely want to do that, and then brings you down to the reality of, oh, these people that I love and I love to hang out with, let's make some plans to go hang out. And this is what that is all about. It's about taking the time to focus your energy on someone other than yourself. And I'm not saying this because we Aquarians are so egotistical, we only think of ourselves. I am saying this because our minds go in so many different directions. We spend too much time hermetized within ourselves, and we need to spend that time with other people, creating fun things to do with other people. So that's really what this week is all about. It's about giving ourselves the space to just say, you know what? I think it would be nice to go get away for a weekend with my kids, or I think it would be fun to hop on a plane to Vegas with my friends and go have some fun and do something that is completely out of the ordinary. Because even though our ordinary goes in like many different directions, we still need that time to just kind of sort of unplug from all of it, focus our energy on something fun so that we can come back to it with a refreshed focus. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving into Pisces. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule, and Neptune square with Venus is going to create a little bit of a challenge, specifically around your long-term goals, because that's where Venus's focus really is. And this challenge may block your creative way of looking at those long-term goals, if that makes sense. The good news is it's over next week, so it's not something that's going to screw with you for a long time. You can take a little bit of a break and maybe take a look at that next week, rather than trying to push through this week. If that helps. Neptune's trine and sextile, though. Neptune's trine with the sun and Mercury, as well as a sextile with Pluto, they're both very helpful aspects, specifically in terms of your career and your home, and bringing those two things together. This isn't a challenge. This is helping you be able to create a schedule and to create space for everything that you need to do. And this energy is going to go into that, helping you to find the time to be able to do everything that you would like to do. So it puts your career in its proper place in your schedule. It puts your home responsibilities in their proper place in your schedule, allowing you to create your room for your long-term goals in your schedule as well. We all kind of go through that craziness where it seems like our home responsibilities and our career responsibilities kind of take over our whole entire lives, and we really don't have a lot of time for anything else. But if we looked at our day-to-day life, we would see that that's absolutely not true. We have plenty of time. We just don't always utilize it correctly. Neptune's influence really comes in and says, don't try and look for the time, feel your way through the time, feel your way through the schedule. So if you're looking at a schedule that includes working 40 hours a week and taking care of your family outside of that 40 hours a week, you still got 2 days, right? You still got 2 days, those weekend days, we'll say, your days off, where you can plan other things, or you can work on your long-term goals. So even though it may take a little bit longer, doesn't mean that you don't have the time. Okay. So that's what I have for you guys. That's what I have, period. Hey, if you haven't done it yet, go and check out the heavymetalpsychic.com. You can check it out on your computer. You can check it out on your mobile. I've got a membership going up. We've got workshops coming up. There's all kinds of stuff taking place on my website. So if you haven't gone and seen it yet, heavymetalpsychic.com, you can't miss it. Hope you go and you enjoy, and I see you there soon. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. If you love your horoscopes, donations are always welcome, and there are donation links there in the video description. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you for watching. Hey, I'll see you guys next week. In the meantime, have a great week, everybody.